Right, and we should be live, hopefully, technical issues aside. Sorry, guys, we just sorted things out. Hopefully, we should be live. If you guys are watching this on Rugby Analyst channel, my name's Mark, aka 2 Cents Rugby, and I'm joined by Rich from Rugby Analyst on my channel as well. How's it going, Rich?
Yes, going all right. I had everything set up with all my studio gear and didn't work, so just go back to the phone. But hey, that's YouTube. That's what it's meant to be like, huh?
That's it. Well, the sound, at least on my end, is remarkably good. So you guys let us know in the chat if we sound okay, if you can see us, if you can hear us. I figure Rich and I will probably just have a wee chat. There's a couple of issues that, I don't know about issues, but at least a couple of questions I wanna pose to Rich, and then yeah, we can let your guys' questions come through, and we'll go through some of them as well. But I mean, I've slept through this, Rich. Essentially, I stayed up till midnight watching this last night, and then as soon as it was done, I went to bed. So the fallout, I don't know what the fallout is because I've missed all of that. What is it like
Well,
over
I'm
your neck of the
I'm
woods at
just
the moment?
impressed. Yeah, I'm just impressed you stayed up to watch it. That's good commitment. I like that. I mean, Fallout wise, fairly predictable. My guys are great at chucking the comments on. I've already done a quick reaction video, and it's just the standards. Just a little confused with maybe Johnny Hill coming in as second row. Um, just a few inclusions that are a little bit out there. A few too many English for some people's likings. Um, Owen Farrell Owen Farrell was probably always going to be in, wasn't he? But a few grumblings about that. Johnny Gray as well. Admission of Johnny Gray. Probably the most felt really. People not sure about Mako as well. That was interesting. Didn't really expect that, especially the problems he's had in the scrum. What about yourself? What issues do you see? Or should we start with the positives? I mean, I don't mind.
Oh, I mean, the Scottish contingent, I think, would have to make the people north of your border pretty happy. That's the biggest Scottish contingent we've seen, and goodness knows how long. I haven't looked back in the history, but what is it, 8 Scots in the lineup? So that's a remarkable reward for some guys who have been pretty good form.
Yeah, I think eight's good. I mean, they could have had more actually. I did a video on the proportions of Scots in previous tours, and it's been incredibly low. So I think eight's good, but again, maybe a little bit peeved that there's 11 English, considering their form wasn't that great.
Yeah, well, that was going to be one of my questions because I admit I did have a quick gander at the YouTube comments before I joined you here, and there does seem to be a bit of grumbling. And prior to the announcement, there seemed to be, I don't know, people predicting like, oh, based on form, there's going to be a lowest proportion of English ever, and here they are with the biggest share of the lot. I mean, is this just Gatland thinking, the class is permanent, even if these guys are a bit out of form, especially the Saracens guys who maybe haven't had enough game time?
Yeah, it's interesting to think how does he want to play. I think that's the thing with Gatland. He'll pick whoever he thinks is going to play the way that he wants. I mean, for example, Elliot Daly was one I haven't mentioned. Really, probably on form, didn't deserve to be in the squad, but that's kind of irrelevant if he gives Gatland what he wants. And it does look like he's down as a 13 as well, which is interesting. So why would he be in at 13? Well, you think kicking, big boot, long range kicking. What he thinks he's the best guy for it. He's done it for him before for the Lions. So, if he gives him what he wants, he's in maybe.
Especially at altitude, with that extra bit of distance that he can get on that boot of his. So maybe that's part of it. I was also wondering, because Daly is one of the more flexible guys in terms of his positioning. He can play, half the back line.
So, there's a cat in the
is there any potential that Gatland follows Rassie Erasmus's suit and only puts 2 backs on the bench and has Daly covering most of the positions?
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't particularly thought of that. I mean, Farrell kind of helps with that as well. If you put him on the bench or even starting, then you get 2 for 1, don't you? in the back line. So that's a good call. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know. I mean, whether he goes, tries to smash the Springboks by going extra forwards, that people will say that doesn't work. You can't beat the Springboks at their own game. You need to do something different. But I don't know. Gatlin does like big ball carriers and whatnot. So
well, I've got a feeling you're right. I mean, Mark, I think you're right. Trying to take them on at their own game is probably foolish. And looking at some of the people he's not selected kind of indicates that. I mean, he hasn't taken Healy or Marler in the front row. Hasn't taken some of the bigger back rows. He's kind of gone for quick back rows. So he may well be going for speed in the forwards. Kind of hold their own in the set piece and then just go for speed. And like you say, maybe have 6 on the bench and try and tire them out.
Maybe. Now, speaking of speed in the forwards, your man Sam Simmons manages to not get selected for England. I guess he doesn't have what Eddie wants in a number 8, but then he is good enough for the Lions. Now, he was, at least on a lot of the stuff that I read, he was pretty divisive in terms of people before the announcement. Half the people saying Eddie's a fool for not picking him for England, and half of the people saying this guy just doesn't have it at test level. The game against Leinster the other day, I know it was only one game, but people were saying that was the closest thing you'll get to a test match at club level, and he wasn't dominant. So how is his selection looking from where you're sitting?
Well, I think it goes back to that point we were making before, that if he's going for speed as his ace card, then he's the man you want, maybe off the bench. Again, guys in my comments, really insightful, they were saying, well, maybe he thinks about maybe starting Faletau at 8, and maybe if he wants to bring a Simmons on, he moves Faletau to 6 potentially, to keep the size but let Simmons pick off the base, etc. So I think I don't think you pick Sam Simmons without wanting speed. He is probably one of the quickest players in the whole squad. Full stop.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen him burn backs multiple times, at least for the Chiefs.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, who are the guys that are going to feel the most aggrieved? I mean, Kyle Sinclair was one guy that I would have had in my 23, and he doesn't even make the 37.
Yeah, that's the one I don't really understand. I can't really think of a reason for that. Maybe he doesn't think it's scrummaging.
Maybe discipline. I don't know. Like, I know he's a bit of a character. He's not everybody's cup of tea. He rubs people the wrong way. Is that potentially it?
Well, I mean, from what I've heard, I think he was actually really popular when he toured with the Lions last time socially. Discipline. I mean, there's always that fire there with him, but he has been able to control it fairly well. So I don't know. I thought he would actually be one of Gatlin's favourites, especially to bring off the bench. So, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been starting all the time for Bristol. He hasn't settled in that great at Bristol. Struggled a bit, so it could be the fact he's looked at him at Bristol and thought maybe he's not quite in the right place for the tour.
Other than him, anyone else you thinking? I mean, you mentioned Johnny Gray earlier, but the locks was always going to be one where Gats is just kind of spoiled for choice.
Yeah, I mean, James Ryan is going to be super aggrieved. I mean, he was certainly last year almost a nailed-on starter in everyone's team, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he's done a lot wrong, but possibly
he's had issues with his head, hasn't he? HIAs. He's had a bit of time off with concussion.
Yeah, could have gone against him. I mean, Sexton's out as well, and he's had problem with HIA as well. So maybe he's thought, I'm not taking many in a squad. They're going to have to be very physically resilient. Maybe that is a factor. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, because I guess you can't just... I don't know how the deal is going to be with sending replacements over, but I would imagine with COVID it's going to be, I don't know, just that extra level of complexity to get guys permission to leave and what situation they've been in and COVID tests and all that stuff. So I don't know. Maybe that is a factor, eh?
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to, if they can make do with who they've got. I think they might not call many people up, but we'll see.
Anybody else? Navidi, maybe?
You got Navidi and Jamie Ritchie. I thought they were tight calls. I was never. I mean, they're both excellent players, and I'm sure they would have done well. But I don't think either of them were ever nailed on to go. But Simmons and Conan are definitely ones we hadn't seen coming. So they've probably swallowed up their spots, to be honest.
And what about Courtney Laws? Prior to the thing starting, everyone was saying, no, he's got an injury. He's had surgery. Don't know when he's going to be back. And suddenly he's on the plane.
I think it was as much a surprise to him as it was to us, actually. I've just seen a little reaction video and read some stuff, and he generally hadn't a clue. I don't think he'd even got a preparation email saying, "Are you up for coming?" He literally saw
right?
told his name. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he will be ready. I think fitness-wise, I think he's close now. He will be ready, but he's super versatile. Gatland knows him well. Outstanding line-out man. And if you want to really beef up your line-out, you put him at 6, you put Falatau at 8, you put Tipperick at 7, plus your 2 second rows, and you just don't know where the ball's going to go.
That's right. Yeah. Well, for a long time, I've liked the idea of playing a kind of a lock loose forward in that back row, be it a Laws, be it a Tyke Byrne, because I know the Springboks do that. They've got Peter Steph Tutoy, who's pretty versatile, and they've got a heap of good locks, although I know the Springboks locks have had their own issues with injury as well. So
quite a lot of issues.
It's going to be one that I guess Gats needs to get pretty secure, because if you can't win your own line-up ball against the Boks, you'll be in trouble. Hooker, I think, was one that pretty much went according to plan, right? It's Owens, it's Cowan-Dickie, and it's George. That was virtually everybody's team who you read had those same 3, bar a few exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I had Turner in briefly after the Six Nations because he had such a great Six Nations, but he's very new on the international scene. And I think he's seen enough of George now to see his line-out throwing's absolutely on the money and his set piece is good. So I think, it's really good. It's actually a really good position, I think, because you've got George and Owens who you think could both start quite happily, and Cowan-Dickie as your impact sub, looks to work well.
Yeah, he's almost made a specialty of just coming off the bench and causing havoc as old Cowan-Dickie. Now, speaking of new onto the international scene, Lewis Rees-Zammit has had quite the rise in his fortunes. Like, when I was thinking about a personal preference, I was thinking surely he's just a touch too young. He's a year too raw, but I guess the saying is if you're good enough, then you're old enough, right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to be surprised if he was left out, actually, because he's got, time-wise, 2 Lions tours at least under his belt if he stays fit. But he's just been so dangerous. You just could not take him. I mean, if you want to score tries, he's the man. I mean, obviously, the other guys there are great, but, for absolute genius, speed, he's a go-to. I mean, he'll obviously play him in the warm-up games, and if he makes some mistakes and gets out of position, he probably won't make the test side. But if he has an absolute stormer, then you want him. Yeah, you want him in your back pocket. You'd be kicking yourself if you hadn't taken him, I think.
Certainly, he'll benefit from the experience, even if he doesn't get involved in any of the tests. Now, the other guy that's kind of relatively new onto the international scene is the big Scotsman, former South African Duhan van der Merwe. Now, us New Zealanders, we've had a bit of experience playing big wingers and the likes of John Lomu, Julian Savia. We know what it is to field big guys in a number 11 jersey. And interestingly, I know it's going back quite some time, and 2021 is different from any historical games, but at least our wingers in New Zealand have struggled in terms of their try-scoring records against the Boks. Like, I think Julian Savia played the Boks maybe 8 or 9 times and scored 1 try, despite, killing it against other teams. John Olomu never managed to try against them. Do you think he's a chance, the big man?
What, a chance to start in a test, Jim? He has been sensational in the Six Nations. I mean, his USP is when he gets the ball, he calls like an explosion. He'll run into a tackle and guys will literally explode off him. If you stop that, if you make the tackle first up, then, maybe he's not as good, like you say. Are the Springboks going to be more aggressive tacklers than guys in the Six Nations may be? So it could be that he's found out a little bit. I don't know. But what we've seen so far is just been outstanding.
Yeah, and he's so quick for a guy that size. It's almost, your eyes can't really believe what they're seeing when he gets moving, because he's got such a turn of speed. I do worry a little bit about if he's up against the likes of a Cheslin Colby, who can make anybody look stupid. That step of his is just absolutely wicked. I mean, I've seen it happen to Stockdale and multiple other kind of bigger guys, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how he goes.
Yeah, you just don't know. Like you say, anyone's going to struggle against Colby.
Right. I'm going to open up things to the guys in the chat in a second. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of hit up before we open the floor?
No, let's go for it, yeah.
Okay. So, all right, guys, any questions, chuck them in the chat, and Rich and I will go over. Lex, 1991 from Wales, says, was shocked that Farrell got the nod considering his form. Thoughts, Rich?
Okay. Going to the Six Nations, his first game was awful. I think he went in at 10, wasn't he, against Scotland? And he had an absolute shocker, one of the worst. He shouldn't have been played. They weren't ready, a lot of those Saracens guys. He shouldn't have been played, but that's hindsight. After that, to be fair, when he went to 12, he's actually had a fairly solid Six Nations. Still don't like his tackling technique a lot of the time, but he gives you a lot of width at 12. If you want to swing that ball to the likes of Van der Merwe and Rees-Sammet quickly, you go quick pass 10 to 12, and then Farrell can have a couple of decoy runners and absolutely buzz it out to the wing super quick. Plus, he's a goal kicker, extraordinary goal kicker, proven at test level. And because he's a 10 and a 12, it just means you've got an extra tactical option. If you want to play a super kicking game, you slot him in at 10 outside a bigger, and you've just got kicking coming out of your ears as well. So it makes sense tactically if it's not the most thrilling pick.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, for mine, he's not a popular guy. He divides opinion, and I don't know if he does divide opinion. Maybe he's universally disliked, probably outside of England. I don't know what it's about. Maybe it's his face. Maybe it's his tackling technique, like you say. Maybe it's just because he's a very good player, and maybe we don't always like to admit that from a guy in a white jersey. I'm not sure.
Do you know what? The reason why he could be good in South Africa is exactly what you said. If he's on your team, you love him. If he's against you, you hate him. And this time round, he's going to be on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's one of those players that when you play with, you love him getting into the opposition. And when you play against him, you just think he's a insert word here.
So-and-so, yeah. Charles says, and this was one of the picks that kind of surprised me as well, thoughts on Bundy Aki is not just a poor man's Manu Tuilangi.
Do you want to go at that, or do you want me to go at that?
I mean, I was surprised, to be fair. I thought because I was pretty sure that in Gatz's mind, George North was an absolute lock for at least the squad and probably his starting lineup, but I don't know. I thought Tuilangi is back fit, but he obviously hasn't played internationals, so he was a chance if you want to go for that kind of like-for-like big man. I was a little bit surprised a more familiar character like Jonathan Davis didn't make it, although I know his form has kind of not been what it was. But I mean, looking at all the other picks, Gatlin's not necessarily only looking at form. I think he would back himself and his coaches to kind of get the guys in the right frame of mind and the right form. But I mean, Aki's a good player. He's a pretty big ball carrier as well. He obviously knows Henshaw pretty well from their time together with Ireland, so there's certainly potential there for him to do well. But I will admit that one catch me by surprise.
He's had some excellent games for Ireland, but sometimes when he's been stopped physically, he kind of doesn't have a huge amount else. But he clearly wanted some size in the midfield. I think it could be that simple. North, I think, mucked things up a lot, especially in the back three as well, because he's a winger as well. Tuolangi, if he plays a couple of games for Sale and there's an injury, you might see him coming out. That could be interesting.
Right, I agree. He is certainly a bit of a unit. James says, no creativity at 13 could be a problem, because I guess if we look at the guys he's picked, Harris is kind of defensively renowned as kind of one of the better guys in the game, but he is not. I mean, as James says, he's not like the most creative of 13s. Are we missing kind of that Jonathan Davis style player?
It's part of the reason I thought Slade might actually go, because he is basically a fly half playing at 13. The only guy I can see in there is Elliot Daly, actually, in that role. Yeah. But again, he's on form-wise, you probably wouldn't have picked him. But actually, 13 is his best position. I mean, if he played 13 the whole time, we might be saying differently, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to judge by YouTube comment sections, but Slade is one guy that I often see copping a bit of flack as well as Elliot Daly. Is there a particular reason for that? Because when I see him, I mean, he's a good player.
I don't know. He's improved a lot. He could be a little bit flaky. Could be seen as a bit of a lightweight potentially. But, I mean, the last year for Exeter, he's been phenomenal. Because, like I said, I mean, he is a 10. He wanted to be a 10. It didn't happen. He went to 13 and he had to become a lot more physical. And I think he's just about got there, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm a bit gutted he's not going.
Yeah, he might be on the, I don't know, some kind of waiting list. Standby list. Rodri says Gareth Davis over the other scrum halves. Now, at least for me, when I look at all of the options for the British and Irish Lions, the 9 jersey is the one where I look at it and go, you don't have that guy, that Antoine Dupont, or like the Aaron Smith, or whoever it is, like that one guy who was clearly, head and shoulders above everyone else. You've got some guys who've done it before, some kind of young up and coming guys, but no one who's really a lock in at the moment. And like Rodri says, Gareth Davis is one of the ones who's been picked. Obviously, Gatland knows him pretty well. What is your feeling about the 9s?
Yeah, Faf de Klerk kind of wipes the board with all of them, but there's nothing we can do about that. Gareth Davis, or is that the question about Gareth Davis? Yeah. He actually, if you look at all his individual parts, he's incredibly quick. He's physical, he's strong, he's got a good pass. So, he's got all the components of a fantastic scrum half. It's just, for me, he's made some howlers actually for Wales at certain points, like a really bad kick or a really bad decision. Just occasionally kind of maybe sours your opinion of him. But, if he gets it right, could be an inspired pick. But he wasn't even Wales' first choice at the beginning of this Six Nations. They wanted to go Thomas Williams. He got injured. Then I thought Gareth Davis would come in, but no, they went for the 25-year-old Hardy. So Gareth Davis is essentially Wales' third choice scrum half almost.
And yet he makes the British and Irish Lions. So yeah, I guess that maybe that's why that's got people perplexed. He's another one that seems to, I don't know, I guess divide opinion. AS says he's gutted for Johnny May. And he's probably a guy, if you looked a year ago, was again another one who seemed probably locked in, even maybe 6 months ago. But what's happened?
Well, Louis Rees-Zammit has happened. That's one thing. That doesn't help. And England's poor form. I say it's that, to be honest. If it was a year ago, he'd have gone. So yeah, gutted for the guy for sure. But these things happen, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I do like Johnny May. He's always been one of my favourite English players. I know people don't like when I say I like some of the English players, but he is just class. And I would like to see him.
You're allowed to like the English sometimes. It's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, no bones about that. On South African hard tracks, I think he would be a phenomenal asset as well. But like you say, there's plenty of guys who've kind of got similar skill sets, Watson and Reece Sambit as well. So it's just a tough one. It's just a tough one. Who else have we got? Oops, wrong one. Toto, we already talked about it a little bit. He says, Navidi's been robbed. In my opinion, he was Wales' best all-round flanker.
Do you agree?
I think I did pick him in my Six Nations kind of team of the tournament. And maybe he loses out a little bit that he is such a kind of all-rounder. Like he's quite good at everything. He's got good hands. He offloads really well. He can get over the ball and pilfer like some of the other guys. But if I was going to pick a jackler, I'm probably not going with Navidi. If I'm going to pick a line-out operator, I'm probably not going with Navidi. So maybe that's just it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think he also got injured potentially at the wrong time, and other guys, started showing a bit better whilst he was away.
And maybe, I guess, also our point earlier about guys who are a bit injury prone. Maybe Navidi is another one of those guys. He's had his own issues with concussion as well.
Yeah, no, he would. I think if he'd been selected, I'd have been very happy about it. Whenever he plays for Wales, he's one of those guys who never gives below a 7 out of 10. And like you say, he can play anywhere across the back line. He's good at everything. He's not a bad. It wouldn't ever be a bad pick to take him.
Adrian's got one that a lot of people have actually mentioned. He's put 2 words. First one, I guess it's 2 letters, CJ, and the next one is Stander. CJ Stander. Was he even available? Because when he announced his retirement, I read some reports saying he's ruled himself out, other reports saying he'll be available for Ireland and the Lions. What was the deal?
Okay. I've looked into this so much, and I've got the official answer, and that is I've no idea. You cannot get a straight answer anywhere.
Right.
So it could have been. I mean, he's played so well recently. I'd be amazed if it wasn't something to do with availability or something. It might be, but yeah, that's the most plausible to me.
Yeah, I literally would read 2 different news stories. One of them saying he's definitely out. One of them saying he's definitely available. Yeah, I guess take your pick. Toby says, why was Halfpenny left out with his kicking game?
A bit too old, I think. Possibly as simple as that. He's still excellent. I wondered if he was going to slow down a bit this year, but no. I mean, he could have gone. He could have gone, but I think they've got, what have they got? They've got Watson, who can play 15. They've got Williams, who can play 15, of course. Hogg can play 15. So they've got enough 15s. Williams has got a good kicking game. Elliot Daly could slot into the back 3 and play a good kicking game. Bigger, Farrell as goal kickers, I think you'd be very happy. I just don't think they need him in a horrible way.
Yeah, they're kind of spoiled for choice. Having a very accurate boot is already, like you said, a pretty common thing.
He's an unbelievable player, though. I love the guy. He's absolutely amazing.
I agree. Kind of following the Lions question from A. White says, that's an interesting username. Does Eddie Jones have to pick Sam Simmons if he performs well on the Lions tour? If I know Eddie, I would say no. Eddie Jones does what he wants to do, but...
Yeah, I think he's had a bit of a telling off possibly from the RFU, so I'd be surprised if he doesn't pick him, to be honest. I think he had a bit of a rough review, to be honest. Yes, if he shows well on the Lions tour and Eddie doesn't pick him, I think Eddie's on very thin ice.
Eddie did manage to get. They gave him a pass though, right? In that RFU review, they said they understood kind of the factors that led to the poor campaign or something like that.
There's always going to be reasons why they did poorly, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right.
But, yeah, I don't know.
Rachel asks, opinion on Jack Conan. In her opinion, he's a great player. And I did think, I mean, it's always hard to look at just a small kind of microcosm, which is just that one game. But when Exeter played Leinster, and it was Conan and it was Simmons, obviously Leinster won that game. And I thought Conan was the more, highlight kind of worthy player in that one game. But I definitely think he's been in good form, even if he's not everybody's cup of tea. What do you reckon about old Jack?
He's one of those players, along with Tyg Byrne, that for a couple of years now, we've been saying he should or could start for Ireland. And he could easily have been playing number 8 for Ireland for a couple of years now. And Tyg Byrne could easily have been playing 6 potentially for a couple of years. So it's not that he wasn't ever good enough. It's just his spot was taken by standard, basically. And he has had injuries at unfortunate points where he could have got into the team. So I don't think it's anything to do with he's not good enough. It's just he never got the chance. Now he does.
Is he, I'll kind of move over to this question. Mac asks, who's nailed on as a midweek only player? Is Jack in that lot, or do you think he's still got a genuine chance despite some pretty hefty competition?
Well, let's look through. Let me just go through the list. Genuine midweek player. I'd be surprised if Johnny Hill potentially got in the test side. Conan, yeah, maybe. If Faletau's fit, Conan probably doesn't get in the test side. Having a look through, that's probably about it. Maybe Elliot Daly's a bit of an outside shot at the moment. But, hopefully Gatland does what you're meant to do and give everyone a clean slate and literally take on the form. That would be great.
Yeah. What about, this is a question for me. What about open side flanker? Who's going to play there? Is it going to be Tipperick because Gats knows him and his line-out operations? But then you've got Hamish Watson, who was just going gangbusters in the Six Nations. People always talk about him being too small, but at least when I look at his stats, he doesn't seem to be too small in the return that he gets from the effort that he puts in. And then Curry, he doesn't have to play 7. He can play other positions as well, but he's another guy who could be a potential.
Yeah, 7's going to be the showdown, isn't it? It's going to be great to watch. Watson's one of those guys that he can, if he runs into a big player, he's not going to go through him, but he's going to hurt you. He's horrible. He would just be horrible to play against. He's like tackling like a mini rhino. So he's good. He's going to be good. Who you pick at 7, who knows? Completely what you want, really. Tipperick's possibly the least physical, but the best, the quickest. You can play him out. You can use him, and if you want to have your forwards pods arranged for some serious width, he's the guy you want. He's the guy you want out with your centres. Fantastic. If you want your absolute all-rounder, Curry's your man. He's generally good at everything. And if you want just a nasty, nuggety 7 who's going to annoy people, then you go Watson. So it's a great choice, isn't it?
Spoiled for choice. Definitely spoiled for choice. It's just kind of popped past. There it is. Ifran asks, bigger starting. We haven't really talked about who gets the nod at 10. He's got 3 very kind of different options, I guess, with Finn Russell being a lot of people's favourite. Some people hate him. They say he's, he can't follow a game plan. He's too instinct-based. He won't be able to, get on well with Gatland in terms of following team instructions. He's got Bigger, who he knows pretty well, and then Farrell, who could play 10 or 12. I would go with probably Ifran to say Bigger at least as the front runner, but what do you reckon?
Yeah, isn't Russell, I'm sure, will try and follow what he's told to do. He knows this is his biggest chance ever. You wouldn't not do what you're told. But he's got it in him. he will do, if he sees something is on, he will absolutely do it, even if he's told not to. So, he'll give it a good crack, but he could seriously annoy Gatland. If he does something that doesn't work, Gatland, it could be game over. So that's just going to be fascinating to see. But I mean, you can see bigger 10, Farrell 12 as an option. I mean, they're both very tough guys. So defensively, that's a very strong 10, 12 plus. You're getting 2 playmakers and 2 kickers. So they're the 2 you could see working together a little bit better than Russell and somebody potentially. But I don't know.
Simon says he would have liked to have seen Sam Underhill in the squad. Now, didn't he have issues with injury as well, like around Six Nations time?
Yeah, no, he's been back for a while now and playing really well. So fitness-wise, he absolutely not a problem. I just think they've got too many. So they've got 3 sevens already. They just didn't need him, unfortunately. Yeah.
Is he I don't know, I haven't actually looked up the kind of height and weight of those guys. Would he not be? Because he certainly looks bigger than the others. Would he be the most kind of physical? Like, I know in terms of like dominant tackling, Curry is always up there. Itoje is always up there. But Underhill must be up there as well because he's a bit of a unit.
He's not the tallest, but he's an absolute unit, and he hits the hardest. He would just destroy you. You do not want to get hit by Sam Underhill. He's decent at everything else, but that's the thing you pick him for, just destroying people.
So is that maybe another indication that Gatland is not trying to go power for power by not picking Underhill? He's going for guys like Watson and, like you mentioned, Tipuric, the guys who are maybe a bit more all-round athletic than just physically powerful.
Yeah, I think so.
Midfield. Rodri asks, Henshaw and Harris, is that the on-form, maybe, from the Six Nations anyway? Is that the on-form kind of starting midfield duo?
Yep. Oh, maybe North if he was fit, but yeah. Henshaw was outstanding in the Six Nations, as was Harris. So absolutely those 2 of the centres would be form starters. I mean, you could see Russell, Henshaw, Harris as a midfield. That would be exciting. Plus Russell and Harris obviously know each other.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see kind of what Gatland does in terms of using existing combinations or whether he tries to kind of build something new from the team that he's got. Lewis asks, what happened to Jack Knoll?
He's back, I think. He's back now. He has terrible time with injuries. He just gets himself back fit and then he gets another one. I think it was a toe injury potentially. So yeah, no, he's back, but just bad timing. He needed some more games under his belt. There's too many good wingers, unfortunately. Yeah.
Lewis asks, the impact of South Africa not playing for over a year. I mean, I can comment a little bit about that one. I know Rassi and Jacques Ninaba have been organising these alignment camps around the guys they are looking at for potential Springboks action against the Lions. Like the guys who are based in certain cities in South Africa have been getting together, and I think they're doing the same with the guys in Japan, the guys over in Europe. So they're certainly working on it, but nothing quite beats playing together. You can't. No amount of camps and preparation is gonna give you that kind of match readiness, right?
Yeah, I mean, not even close, to be honest. They're doing what they can, but I mean, these alignment camps, you can learn calls, you can learn and line outs, but it's nothing. It's essentially it means very little. They need to get together, train together, play super hard intensity, high paced rugby together. Simple as. Then see where they are.
Does that mean in terms of this Lions tour, because I mean the thing about the Lions is you've got all these talented players coming together, but the hardest part is always the window to get them ready is always so short, and it's been getting shorter as time's gone by. The amount of prep games they've got seems to be getting less and less each tour. But with the South Africans kind of in the same boat, does that mean it's kind of more on a level playing field?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, you could, like you say, have a lot of their big hitters out injured, unfortunately, in the second row. I mean, it can't be any worse for the Lions than it was in New Zealand. They had a stink of a preparation time. They had guys flying in, getting off the plane, and literally playing a few hours later. It's not going to be as bad as that. I think they're pretty much all going to be available for the warm-up game. And if not, they're all going to be flying out together. So straight away, it's better than it was last time out.
Yeah. The New Zealand media did not... they were not very kind in some of the prep stuff when the Lions started off over here in 2017. They were essentially writing the Lions off before they'd even played a game, and especially after they played their first couple of games when they didn't blitz some of our local teams. Anyway, that's the New Zealand media. I won't talk too much.
The New Zealand press were horrible, just horrible, especially to Gatland. He was shocked. He did not think he'd get that. I mean, to be fair, the New Zealand midweek games, warm-up games, they were amazing. The New Zealand sides, provincial sides, they performed out of their skin. Even that, do you remember even that Barbarian side they just chucked together? Right, they were phenomenal, honestly.
That was the first game, yeah. That was... I don't know. We'll see. What's the media feeling like over there at the moment, based on the selection? Because I know the English media can be pretty, maybe more towards England coaches than to Lions coaches, but I know the English media can be pretty cutting as well.
I don't think nothing's really started yet. They're all very excited, but I'm sure they'll soon get the knives out if things go wrong, especially with some left field picks. To be honest, we'll see. We'll see. No, no one really knows. Simple as that.
We'll go a couple more before we wrap things up. LJ asks, Liam Williams on the wing for the high balls. And that is one thing I do like about Liam Williams. He's one of the more secure kind of pair of hands that you can have in terms of your back three. And South Africa's kicking game, especially with Faf, and if it's Pollard, it's Pollard. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, you could put together a back three that's literally a bomb defusal back three, couldn't you? You could go for Williams at full back. You could have, say, Watson on one wing. Josh Adams is good under the high ball. Hogg is as well. If you want to really kick it back, you could put Daly into the back three. It'll be interesting to see who gets that 15 slot. Williams and Hogg are going to absolutely slog it out. It's going to be really tight. And they could easily play Hogg at fullback and Williams on the wing for sure. I can see that, and then have someone bit of X factor on the other wing, or have maybe Watson on the other wing and just go, really classy, lots of kicking, good high ball. But yeah, Liam Williams on the wing could be a cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's his best position, but he certainly performs when he is chosen there.
Yeah, agreed.
Rugby Itch says, who do you guys think has the better 9-10 combo between the Box and the Lions? Well, I think 9, we mentioned that earlier, you'd probably give that to Faf de Klerk. He's probably the out-and-out best 9 of the bunch. Who the Springboks players there? Second 9, that's a bit more of a question, because Rassie, at least when he was the coach and the director of rugby, didn't usually give the backup guy a lot of minutes. It was Herschel Yankees for quite a while. A couple of other guys that tried Embrose prepare, but usually these guys were either sitting on the bench the whole game or maybe getting a few kind of token minutes at the end once the game was already decided. So maybe that's an area of weakness for the Box in terms of the second guy not being
who's playing 10
at international level. Yeah, who's playing 10? Pollard's just been back from Montpellier, right? But
yeah,
again, they've got that one top guy, and then who's their next guy? Is it Elton Yankees? He's generally been an underperforming guy at international level, but he's got the most experience. They've got a young guy, Damien Willemser, who's another kind of 10-15, but he's pretty inconsistent.
He's the favourite, isn't he? I think, if it's not Pollard.
Yeah, but he's like, if I was a South African fan, I wouldn't be too thrilled if that guy was suddenly put in charge to run the back line for a Lions test, because he is just a little bit too jittery, and he just goes a little bit wayward in some of his games. But yeah, they certainly do have two really good front runners if Faf de Klerk and 100 Pollard are their guys. It's the second level that I might be a little bit more concerned about for the Lions. What do you reckon, 9 and 10?
Well, Murray's coming back at the right time. I think he's not been at his best for a while, but it looks like he's just getting back there. So I think he could be your top pick at 9, and then it's just a slog, isn't it, for 10? I mean, Bigger at the moment, Murray and Bigger. I'd say, yeah, Murray, Bigger.
Yeah, those are the two guys that I would have picked in my kind of pre-selection tip. All right, last one. I think we'll go with Chris, and he says he'd play Mornay Stain. I forgot.
Yeah, wheel him out.
Mornay Stain. He is still playing. He's still playing for the Bulls.
Does he come out onto the pitch on a little cart or something, on a little buggy?
How old is he? Is he older than Ellerman Jones? They must be about the same age. He's certainly not got the gas, but that's never really been what his game has been about, eh? He's just a very traditional, he kicks the ball, he puts the up and unders, he kicks the goals. Like, he doesn't need to be quick, he makes his tackles.
Yep.
But he's pretty unflappable. So maybe he has a chance. Maybe. All right, well, cool. That's 45 minutes. It's been a good chat. There's still certainly more dramas to come, I guess, in terms of the Lions tour. We'll have to see. Undoubtedly, some guys will get injured.
Well, the guys will get injured before the tour starts for sure. I mean, that's a given, isn't it?
Yeah, we've still got the Springboks squad to be announced. I don't actually know when that's happening. I tried to scour the internet as well to find when they're naming that side, but failed miserably to find any kind of official confirmation. But yeah, thank you, Rich.
Thank you
for joining me on this one. That was a bit of fun. Thank you guys for coming along and for all the questions. We'll have to do this again sometime, maybe once the tour gets underway. After some of the games, we can have a wee chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. I know you guys in Europe probably need to go to bed. I need to hang the washing. So yeah, happy days. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.